All right, everybody, welcome in to the Tag Tim podcast. We can kind of call it that, I guess. I'm your co-host Tim alongside Tag.
Hi, kind of started this episode with a towel on my face and coughing. Not exactly the best start.
All good. Um, so I guess we're just kind of talking about before this is I had just posted a
Laterals.
video. Yes, laterals. I just posted a video that got a little bit of traction on TikTok talking about how someone is going to eventually come into the NFL and teach these guys how to offload and lateral and more rugby style offensive stuff. And it's going to break the NFL for whether it's a short period of time till defenses adjust or whatever. There is a lot of untapped potential. And a lot of people in my comment section were saying that was the dumbest thing ever and it'll never happen. And then it immediately happened two more times this week. And we saw it
Mhm.
happen once last week. And we've seen the Chiefs do stuff like this with Travis Kelce. Like, this is starting to become more and more common and it's a trend. I don't know your thoughts on it.
Yeah, it's definitely I won't say it's like the next evolution of the NFL offense, but it's definitely it's a fun little quirk, right? And it's like just I would say it's the evolution of the trick play. Specifically the one you saw, I think it was from the Seahawks last night with Zach Charbonnet. Was he the one that caught the lateral?
I think so. And he threw it to JSN, I
Yeah,
believe.
yeah, yeah, yeah. On the other side of the field. It's like offenses are always looking to keep defenses honest. You'll see that with, end arounds. You saw it with the touchdown to Jared Goff. That's what it seems like to me. It seems like the next evolution of trying to bait defenses into thinking you're going one way.
Yeah.
Boom, toss it over the other side of the field. Now you have a 30-yard gain.
Yeah. I just see it so much in terms of like, even when you like this is it's inherently more it is more risky in football than rugby because there's just not as many possessions. But I see a lot of times where it's like you're running down the field and it's like for a rugby player you see it as a 2-on-1, but like normally you might like slow down and wait for the guy to get ahead of your teammate behind you to like get ahead of you and block. But like the way football has just always been played is the guy running with the ball, and if someone's coming at you, they only care about you and they're with the person with the ball. And if you're running, and then if once they commit, just little like 3 foot lateral backwards, they tackle you, the guy walks into the end zone. We saw that
Yeah.
in the Lions game where they had a hook and lateral for an easy walk-in touchdown. And then there's also that style of play that you just mentioned where they're running a drag across the field and they throw it laterally to someone standing on the sideline and they catch it and run upfield after the defense kind of collapses. And the thing about that play, what's great about that is it mitigates the risk because if that person drops that ball on the sideline, it just harmlessly goes out of bounds. You live in the fighting
Yeah.
third down.
That's what I was going to say is because that's the one that I feel like is going to be the more popular one. You're going to see it a lot, and you have seen it a couple times.
Hmm.
It's because you overthrow it, it's out of bounds. You underthrow it, it's going to bounce and go out of bounds. There's
Yeah.
practically like the risk there. Obviously, there's going to be a time this season somebody runs it, it bounces off that receiver, the running back, whoever's catching its chest, and it's a fumble.
Hmm.
But the vast majority of the time, if it's screwed up, it's going out of bounds.
Yeah. And then the other point I brought up with you is like so many people were saying because it is risky, it'll never become mainstream. But then it's like at all levels of football, less common in the NFL, but people run triple options with a lateral option. They run speed options where a quarterback's running out to the right and has the uh, option to lateral it backwards. I feel like it's just not as risky as people make it out to be.
Yeah.
Like these are elite level athletes that can probably throw a ball 5 feet and catch a ball from 5 feet away.
Mhm.
Yes, there's more risk, and yes, there's more area for things to go wrong, but I still think there's a lot of untapped potential in it. Um,
Also, to the risk point, I'm sure people said the same thing about the forward pass, man.
yeah, that's what a lot of
The,
people were saying in my comment section that were arguing with the same point as me. They're like, yeah, I agree. The forward pass will also never catch on.
mhm.
And then, like as a joke, where like one people looked at that as too risky because it was like if
But
you
what if
throw
you
the
throw an
ball, there's
interception?
only three outcomes and two of them are bad.
Yeah.
You either throw the ball and someone catches it, which is the one good option, and then the bad options are an incompletion and an interception. So throwing the ball is
Yeah.
dumb.
Which
And
obviously
I'll look
nobody's
where we're at.
saying like a backwards lateral is going to become as innovative as the forward pass, but
Right.
like it doesn't mean that it can't be something that
No.
defenses have to prepare for at least.
Right. And like then people would take it too far in my comments. And they were like, yeah, but like linemen could never run this because they're 300 pounds unathletic and like can't catch. And it's like, yeah, I'm not talking about like literally running a full-on rugby style offense where every single player is a ball carrier. That'd be sick. But that I don't expect that to ever be a thing. And then if I wanted to be petty, I wanted to get your opinion on this too in terms of responding to comments where
Oh,
it's
I love
like
it.
I've always taken the stance of, if I build a platform someday, I'm always just gonna take like they don't comments don't ever really get to me. Like they don't really like bother me that much.
Yeah.
And it's like I'm always just gonna be the guy that's like, oh, well, I don't know why you're so upset. But then part of me is like, if I'm trying to grow, are the people that are just like helpless and like so angry in the comments for no reason, like, do I just mess with them and then like comment back and forth and all it does is just help me? Like, do I just do it like that? Because for the people like that, I wouldn't actually be taking this opinion and stance, but it could have been like, you should tell that to Jordan Mailata, a professional rugby player and Eagles left tackle. And then like just like sparked this like, well, it's one player, blah blah blah. And then
Yeah.
like I could have done that, but I'm like, but I wanted to ask you like how you normally play that.
Whenever I'm getting like people that disagree with me in my comments,
Yeah.
uh,
And it's one thing to disagree, and it's another thing to be like, this guy's so dumb, like
yes,
condescending type stuff.
I have a situation like that. It was my take on Travis Hunter. And when you look, if you didn't play the video and you just looked at the comment section of the video, you would think my take was Travis Hunter is going to succeed as a two-way player in the NFL. It's not what I said. I said that if um a team drafts him and doesn't let him try, that would be doing a disservice to him. You should at least let him try to do it. And I brought up Otani, uh, not to compare the sports or the situations, but what I was saying is imagine if the Angels never let him try to become a two-way player. We'd be robbed of two MVP seasons and probably one of the greatest baseball players of all time. And people were in the comments were like, football and baseball are two different things. I know, dude. I'm not comparing the sports. And I'm not only did I make a video responding to them, but I was in the comments like fighting for my life. That's honestly one of my favorite things to do.
Yeah.
I really like sitting there and responding to comments, especially when people disagree with me. I'm very
Yeah.
argumentative, not in like a unhealthy way, but and I just like to debate. And
Sure.
so that was one of the main reasons I started my account was because I wanted to debate with people. So whenever I do get
Sure.
situations like that, I do like to respond.
Like from a platform building perspective, it 100% like helps you to be like super engaging with that type of stuff.
Oh yeah,
From
because
a like different aspect of like, should you even like give these people the time of day? Like, I don't
yeah,
know.
and I get people like that I argue with on my post on another post of mine being like, "Oh, hey, isn't this guy?" I
Mhm.
posted that Trevor Lawrence video. There was a guy in the comments who was like, "Oh, this is the guy that likes Bryce Young and thinks it's never the quarterback's fault." And I'm like, "Oh, nice, you remember me."
Yeah, I mean,
So
you
it
get
does it
someone to
does
come
help with
back.
that aspect of
Yeah.
building your community, even if they don't
Right.
necessarily agree with you.
Right. So I don't know. I wanted to get your take on that because this is the first video I've had in a long time, like get this much traction. It's like approaching like 50K.
So
Um, which very good for me. You've been killing it, but that's very good for me. Um, so it's been interesting to see that kind of keep going. And that's one of like that's another kind of like niche content creator type thing.
yeah.
It's a great feeling when a video takes off.
Oh, it's
And
like
I don't know if that's
crack.
like, do I like that so much from like an attention seeking type of way? Or is it like I've been posting every single day for months and like I'm finally like getting somewhere with it?
Yeah, I
Type
feel
of
like it's
feeling. And
okay
it's
for
probably
it to
both.
be a bit of both. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like nobody posts on the internet because they don't want attention. I'm posting
Yeah.
sports videos because I want attention, but it's also like I put so much work in this watching film, or I've been
True.
posting so many videos that when it happens, it's extra special, you know?
Right. Yeah. It's a combination of both.
Yeah.
Like you said, of course we're putting this out there hoping that a lot of people see it. But at the same time, what I'm starting to realize, it's like the only way to really have success is to like, not that I'm putting like a painstaking amount of work into it, but like you have to be like painstakingly consistent. Like you gotta post like so consistently because even the videos that you think are really good, like it might just not get picked up by the algorithm. So you just have to like take a swing at the bat like every single day. And
Yeah.
eventually something like this video that's doing well for me right now, I put probably the least amount of effort, like a low amount of effort compared to other ones. Like I was just rewatching the Rams 49ers game because like I didn't get to watch it, so I wanted to see how the Rams actually won. And then I had listened to a podcast. Sam Monson and Steve Palazzolo. I
I
was
am
listening to
familiar with their work.
their new podcast, Check the Mic, and when they were going over this game that I didn't watch, Sam Monson, who's a former like rugby player or whatever, was like, yeah, at the end of this game, they actually had like a really good like offload sequence that looked like legitimate rugby. And so then when I rewatched this game, I was like, oh, I want to just like watch the last play. And then I saw that, and then it's like a take that I've had for a while, and I was like, oh, let me record this 30-second video, and it's got more views combined than like my last like 100 videos.
That's how it always works. It's
Yeah.
always you put all of these works in these videos, and here's this one where you're just fucking off,
Yeah.
not thinking, and it gets in 100,000. You're like, okay.
Yeah.
That's how it was with me for a while. Especially when I first started my account, is I would put all this work into football videos, and I really didn't know what I was talking about. And then here's this post where I'm drunk watching March Madness. I step out to my car for like 5 minutes, record this video on Oakland County that I know nothing about, gets 600,000 views. Or the Josh Allen video, where that night I was watching the Dolphins, and I was like, well, the reason I was rewatching that game is because I thought the Bills played well because of against the Dolphins because they had big press corners. And while I was watching it, I noticed the Josh Allen thing. And I was like, oh, you know what? Let me make a video about this. It takes 2 seconds. I think it has like 800K now. Or
Crazy.
like, yeah. And then you compare that to like the Dak Prescott video where I was watching like film and studying third down analysis for probably like 5 hours. And that video got like 800 views. So it's
Yeah,
like,
I mean,
it's
it's a
never the ones you
combination. You
want.
still got to put that stuff out there because that's what
Mhm.
you really want people to see.
Yeah.
Then you got to like get them in somehow, and like, it's those random videos. And then
Yeah.
once you have like a big following where like really no matter what you post, it's gonna get like thousands of views,
Yeah.
then it's like, okay, I'm gonna be, I don't know. You kind of like have videos that go out that it's like, I don't know, maybe this could be something and be like a hook to grab people in, and then
Yeah.
videos that are actually like providing like good solid value that provides the people that decided to follow you.
Yeah. You've got to give uh people a reason to follow you, and then you can start making like that truly analytical stuff. It's
Yeah.
kind of like Esquire Anthony Lawson, started off making 2K content, and he got his people on his
Oh,
accounts where
really?
it's just, yeah,
Like he
2K
was
and
he
Madden
would
content.
record himself playing 2K?
Yeah, he would record himself like playing with teams on Madden. Uh, and he got like 5,000, 10,000 followers off of it, and then he starts making like this analytical content.
Hmm. What would he
And
do? What were the Madden videos? Like he would
people
just
would ask him
play?
like, "Hey, win a game with the Patriots or win a game doing such and
Oh,
such."
really?
Yeah, yeah, it wasn't. And then obviously he had the Esquire Sports account, which he would post on, so people were familiar with his face.
Gotcha.
Uh, but yeah, it's all about building familiarity, and if people have seen
Yeah.
your face or heard your voice before, they're gonna stop and watch. Like Dino Talk Sports, I
Hmm.
got his. He had just it was like 5 minutes after he posted it. Look on his account, it's got like 10,000 views. It's like I want that kind of motion, please.
Yeah, that'd be sick. Do
Yeah,
you
but
think
it's
those
because people
people
are
like,
so used to hearing his voice. It's like they hear it. It's
yeah,
like, oh, gotta watch.
do you think those guys are able to like monetize anything off of that? Yeah.
Um,
What do you think?
I like from my understanding with what I've heard from Theo, it's the monetization doesn't come from TikTok, it's everywhere else. I think that's why you've seen Anthony Lawson do like his Substack and he started branching out to Twitter is that the monetization from this kind of stuff comes from other areas, although they still make like I think they Bladen that and on Stay Hot they were talking about it, and Bladen was saying that like he gets like gas money, grocery money from TikTok, but his real revenue is from the podcast. It's from what he does on Twitter and all the other things that he does, like, from ads and sponsors and things of that nature.
Gotcha. That makes sense.
That's why so many of them are trying to branch out.
Yeah, what other like things do they like make money on?
Yeah, it's a
Like
lot
there's like
of
the podcast and stuff, but do they like sell a product or something? Like how do they?
yeah on the Stay Hot. They're bought by a they have like a record deal for their podcast. It's somebody bought them, they send them an advance, and then they'll pay back that advance by making shows, by getting ads on their shows and things of that nature.
That's cool. That's the dream.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a dream. The Tag Tim pod will get there one day.
Being paid to talk would be sick.
That would be sick. So anyway, I thought we'd just kind of like review some games from the week. Um,
Yes, please.
I thought maybe it would be fitting to start because it was the first game of the week. I know it was a little bit of time ago at this point. Do you want to just give like an overall state of the Cowboys after
Mm,
the Thursday night win?
like I'm the president. State of the
Yeah,
Cowboys
state of the
address. Yeah.
Cowboys. That can be a weekly
Um,
segment.
yeah, I made that video that night and it's like have you ever had something good happen to you but you can't even celebrate it because it doesn't feel like it's good? That's what it is like beating the Giants in 2024. It's like, yay, we won. But we still don't have a receiver outside of CeeDee Lamb. Tyler Guyton got his fucking lunch money taken all night by Kayvon Thibodeau. This is not Oregon Kayvon Thibodeau. This is NFL Kayvon Thibodeau. Uh, Although our run defense looked better, we couldn't guard a parked car in the secondary. Malik Neighbors was destroying us. So, like, yes, you win the game, but I don't walk back feeling any different than I did after the Ravens game. It just felt like we played a team that was much worse,
That's fair.
which is what it is. You got to take wins, but
Kind of like the whole Cowboys thing right now. It's like, yeah, but they're good, but like, what does it look like when they play against someone really good? And that's kind of just been like the theme. They
yeah.
also can't, not only can they not stop the run, they also can't run the ball at all.
Oh, it's like they've completely ignored that facet of the game in general on both sides of the ball.
Yeah,
It's
which is
it's
so
pathetic.
weird because
Little fun fact for you. Take a wild guess who has the longest rush for the Cowboys this season.
I saw this stat, but it's CD, right?
CeeDee Lamb with a 12-yard carry. That's embarrassing, dude.
Yeah,
Embarrassing.
the
When
whole
your best
thing,
rusher is
yeah.
your best receiver, that's nasty.
Yeah, the whole like rise of the last few years in terms of like, oh, like running backs don't matter, running the ball doesn't matter as much, stopping the run like isn't that important. It's like true to an extent, but it's like if you're really bad at either, then but especially like that's the big thing with run defense. It's like you don't have to be like the number one run defense in the league. You just can't be awful.
Yeah. You have to be able to
Um,
stop it to the point where a couple times a game, everybody knows the other team's going to throw and you have to stop them from throwing. And it's the Cowboys are so bad that won't
yeah,
happen against a
that's
good team.
and it's the run game on both sides of the ball is only becoming more important with, everything we're hearing about the rise of too high and all this stuff where it's hard to get anything over the top and you got to kind of play the short to intermediate game. And being able to run the ball helps a lot for that. And being able to stop the run while staying in too high is now like the most valuable thing in the NFL. Um, from a Ravens perspective, from a Ravens fan, they've like always, especially the last few years, pretty much always just been a really good run defense. And I think that's gone a long way in terms of like why they've been a good, solid organization. Where if you're just like built solidly up the middle and you like can have that foundation on offense and defense in terms of being able to run the ball and stop the run, it gives you a really solid foundation to kind of build off of. And if you don't have that, it's like you don't necessarily need to be the number one rush offense and defense in the league, and that's not like a prerequisite to be like a Super Bowl contender. But to be really bad in those areas is just really tough to have a good football team. Yeah, like a very above average football team, I should say.
Yeah,
Kind of a give and take.
it's such a, and it feels like the Giants are in this spot too, where the league has gone towards a running league now, and it's
Mhm.
right when they let go of Saquon Barkley and be like, well, what was that thing Joe Shane said in the Hard Knocks episode? He
I'm
was
not
like,
going to
well,
pay a quarterback $40 million to hand the ball off to a $12 million running back or whatever.
yeah, yeah, it's a lot better than paying your $40 million quarterback to hand it off to Devin
Yeah,
Singletary, man.
like hindsight's always 2020, but it was like,
Yeah.
wasn't Daniel Jones like the epitome, like the reason the franchise tag exists? Like has a
Uh,
surprisingly good season, and like it's kind of a fluky year. Like everyone's kind of worried that it's a fluky year, and they make the playoffs and he wins a playoff game. Is isn't that exactly why the franchise tag exists? So teams don't have to like strap themselves to a long-term contract like this? Like,
yeah,
isn't that why it exists? So why are you? Because then they franchise tagged Saquon and paid Daniel Jones, and then Saquon played for a year on the tag, and then they had to let him walk. But if you had just franchise tagged Daniel Jones, he has this terrible year that he did, and then you either like get him really cheap or move on, which you wish you did anyway, you would have had the money to pay Saquon and more.
yeah.
And it's
Uh,
like hindsight's 2020. They drafted this guy. I guess I don't know if he actually was the one that drafted him, but they're like, oh, we have so much confidence in this guy, we're paying him like this is the way we're going. But it's like, dude, like
yeah,
that is why the franchise tag exists.
yeah. That was the previous regime drafted Daniel Jones, but still, yeah,
That was
that is
like
the you're right.
Gettleman.
That's the exact, and they should have done that the other way around. Pay Saquon, the guy you know is good, and then franchise tag the quarterback that you don't know is
Yeah.
good. Yeah, you guys made the playoffs, won a playoff game, but it was against the Vikings team that was 7-1 and one scored games, had a terrible defense, and your quarterback threw
I
for
should
15
say
touchdowns.
I'm not. Was Shane there to make that decision, or is he
To
just
tag
cleaning
him
up?
or to sign him, I mean.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, he was the one that re-signed him.
he
He
was.
just didn't draft him. I think he
Gettleman
was the year
drafted.
the Andrew Thomas draft, I think was his first year
Okay.
in New York. Let's see. Because they brought him and
Which
Brian
is what, like
Daboll,
21 or something?
yeah, in the same year, if I'm not mistaken, 2022, which actually might be the year that they drafted Evan Neal, not Andrew Thomas,
Well, I mean, I can't
which
blame them for that. I don't think that's a
no,
GM's
I'm a
fault.
liar.
Like,
That was the year they took K'Von and Evan Neal.
okay.
Okay, yeah, I was right. So yeah, and I don't. A lot of people have been talking about Joe Shane and whether he needs to be fired, and you've talked about it on your page as well. Joe Shane, maybe you can argue needs to be fired. Firing Brian Daboll would be the worst decision
I
in the
still
history of
really
New
like
York.
Dable. I know some people don't, but I
He
think
is
he's
such
a
a
good
good
offensive
coach, man.
mind, and you saw what he did to help Josh Allen, and then the season
Carry
he
that team to
produced
the
for Daniel
playoffs.
Jones. Yeah.
Yeah,
I just posted a video. This is kind of like a random Giants tangent, but I feel like Jalen Milroe is the perfect fit for them. I want to get your take on this because this is a quarterback draft where it's like there's no stud that like is 100% deservedly so like going number one and like needs to start week one and is going to be a great player. There's
yeah,
some guys that could maybe like develop a little bit and like be good NFL players. But I feel like Jalen Milroe, specifically with the Giants and specifically with Brian Dable, like being able to develop in like a creative offense that like has a QB run game aspect already in place. And then we've seen Jalen Milroe, like he is not the most polished passer, but he does have downfield accuracy, and he's not just like spraying deep balls, and he has an arm. So I feel like that's a great pairing with Malik Neighbors.
Yes,
The
and
offensive line is
to that
getting
point,
better.
yeah,
It's still not good, but it's getting better. And Brian Dable, I feel like would be so perfect with that. And then like in combination with the Daniel Jones thing, like they can get out of the contract like pretty soon. But if they like kept him for one more season and like he was the bridge to Jalen Milroe, like every single fan in New York is going to be like screaming to bench him for every week. But I just feel like Milroe would be a great fit. And then on top of all that, what I talked about in my video was like the Giants really need a direction and they need stability. They need like an identity and having like a explosive offense like that where Milroe's explosive, QB run game, and then Neighbors. And I think that explosion just adds all together to have an identity at least on offense. And
yeah,
then they need like leadership, I think is the big thing.
and
And
that's what Jalen Milroe would bring.
right. And
He's that kind of player, that kind of
that's
guy.
what we've seen from him. So I think it was just such a great fit. Like, do I think the Giants are going to have the number one overall pick? Probably not. But could they end up getting Milroe at like the seventh pick or something? I
Mhm.
feel like it could work out really well for that to be the case.
Yeah, to your point with the not the comparison, but the Malik Neighbors thing, saying that like, hey, give him a weapon like that, Malik Neighbors. And you think about Malik Neighbors in college with Jaden Daniels, who's just like a taller, skinnier Jalen Monroe, two guys that are elite athletes with
Hmm.
strong arms who are really good at throwing down the field. Although I think in the intermediate area of the field, Jaden Daniels is not a little, way better than Jalen Monroe at this point in his career. That's the kind of guy Malik thrives with. Is a guy
Hmm.
on the outside, just throw it up and Malik can go get it. And you've already seen Brian Dable develop a guy in Josh Allen who's strong arm, fast, maybe not the most polished passer in the world. That would be a great pairing.
Yeah.
To me, Jalen Monroe is my favorite quarterback in this draft. I don't think he's the most polished player at all, but out of everybody in this draft, Carson Beck, Quinn Ewers, Cam Ward, Dylan Gabriel, if he ends up committing,
Shador.
Shador, he's definitely got the best tools. And if you know anything about me or my draft analysis in the past, I'm a tools guy. I predicted, not predicted, but I said Anthony Richardson was the best quarterback in his draft class. I was a big Josh Allen guy when I was a kid. So I'd rather, especially with the quarterback position where so much of it is situation, so much of it is development, take the guy with the tools and teach him how to become a good quarterback. And that's what Jalen Monroe would be. And I think Brian Daboll can do it. And I think losing Brian Daboll would be catastrophic for that franchise.
Yeah, I think that would be bad. I also want to give Dable a lot of credit. I think a testament to him as well has been the usage of Malik Neighbors because I feel like there's so often like there's very clearly a great electric offensive weapon. And it's
Yeah.
like, how can we not get this guy the ball? And it's like, yeah, defenses are really focused on them and like maybe it doesn't work out that well and like that's why they're not touching the ball enough.
Yeah. But
But
what's the alternative out there?
right. And
Get the
then
best player of the ball.
right, but Dable like uses Neighbors so creatively where like yes, the defense is completely focused on him and no one else, but he's still finding ways to get him the ball. Like I think I saw a stat that like Neighbors was like the most used player in
No.
like pre-snap motion in the
Mhm.
NFL. And it's just because they're doing everything in their power to get him the ball. And he still gets the ball 12 times. Even though every single play the defense is trying to do one thing, it's to stop him getting the ball. So
Yeah,
I think he deserves a lot of credit for putting him in those situations.
it's like when a pitcher has such a good fastball and you're in a 2-2 count or a 3-2 count. You know it's coming, but it's so good that it doesn't matter. That's how they are with Malik Neighbors right now.
Hmm.
And then like with the motion thing, they're getting him so many free releases. And Malik is so credit to Malik. He is so good that it doesn't matter if he's double covered at this point. He's like always open.
Right.
It's just up to Daniel Jones to get him the ball. He had him on that touchdown when him and Trayvon Diggs were
Hmm.
walking back. That dude he cooked. He didn't cook Diggs, but he had beaten Diggs with safety help. And it was if it was just not egregiously underthrown, might have been a touchdown.
So the next thing I kind of want to talk about is the Jaguars. losing at the end of the game. One of my two we talked about this in the last episode, but my two biggest like these teams are gonna surprisingly be really bad this year. I said the Saints, which doesn't look good.
Mhm.
They were really good the first 2 weeks, and they've come back down to earth. But I think it's safe to say that they're not like horrible.
Yeah.
Um, the Jags look like they just have completely run out of gas. And I think it starts with Doug Peterson. And someone asked him like I don't know if you saw it, and when at the post game interview, someone asked him like how do you feel about your like job security? And he was like
It's a weird
it's a weird
question.
question.
No, it's not.
How do I feel about my job security? Like as if like that was like out of left field. It's like, dude, you've lost like 10 games in a row.
You haven't won a game since you haven't won a game since Thanksgiving, man. That's not a weird question.
Yeah. I mean, like that's a really hard question to
Yeah.
answer. But as an NFL coach, I think you have to be prepared to like,
Yeah. And especially an NFL coach that has lost that many games in a row.
yeah,
You got to be prepared for that kind of question.
yeah. That makes me think like, did it actually not cross his mind?
I really hope not. I really hope that's not the case, and he was
If
just being
it
like
didn't
weird
cross
about it.
his mind, like then he should definitely be fired.
Yeah, if yeah,
Like if you don't have that amount of self-awareness, then you don't have the
embarrassing.
prerequisites to be a coach. And
And
like,
I understand in that kind of situation when coaches and players, and it's like, do we come into your job and ask you if your job security is up? Like, I understand that, but we are so also aren't being paid millions of dollars to
right,
coach and play a game.
right,
So
right.
you've got to understand that with that, I guess privilege, I don't want to make it seem like weird, but with
Yeah,
that,
that no,
opportunity
100%.
comes that kind of scrutiny, man. And
Here's like my take on it is like if people weren't allowed to have you stand at a podium and ask you those questions, like if the system of the NFL was not that way, and instead like your job received less attention and people had less access to you, you could have that opinion if you then, like you're saying, like cut your salary by like three quarters
yeah,
or
yeah,
more.
if not more.
Like
Because
Doug
what's
Peterson,
Doug
what do you think
Peterson's
he's
salary?
making? Like through $5 million or something?
Might even be more than that.
I don't
I'll
even know
say
what
like
coaches are
eight,
getting paid. I
eight
don't
and a
know.
half.
8.5. You're getting paid $8.5 million a year.
Yeah, put that
If
by
you
8.25, buddy, and then you can start talking
yeah,
about
I
don't
mean
come
like
into
you
my
can start
work.
complaining about that if like you're a I don't know, high school football coach and you
Yeah.
make like 50K.
And you're coaching social studies on the side. Like, dude, you
Yeah,
live
like
in
then like yeah, like okay, like this is
a
my business.
mansion.
If you're making 8.5 million, like the reason you're making 8.5 million, like part of the thing that comes with the job description of the thing that gets you $8.5 million is that you have to
Yes.
stand up there and people question the decisions you make because
Yeah.
you're making major decisions for a multi-billion-dollar business.
hmm Nobody's doing
That
that,
is
like you're
dumb.
saying, to
That
high
is
school
just
coaches.
so.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like if you don't want that, then go be a freaking like
Alito
O-line
High School's
coach,
head
be
coach.
a
Yeah.
quality, like at the very least, like go be a position coach where no one's gonna ask you anything. Oh, let's
He wants
go.
to make
Who's
an
that?
appearance. It's Rocket. He just
Rocket.
woke up.
What's Rocket's opinions on Doug Peterson?
Rocket's opinion on Doug Peterson is he is ruining Trevor Lawrence's development. See, look, he's very vindicated about this.
Okay.
Ruining Trevor Lawrence's development with the most static offense that I've ever seen in my life. Him and I think it's Zach Taylor. No, it's Zach Taylor's brother is the offensive
Isn't it
coordinator.
Pat?
It might be Pat Taylor.
I thought it was like Pep or something.
Jacksonville Jaguars. Press.
Press.
Press Taylor. You were right. That started with a P. The most static offense I've ever seen in my life, trotting out an offensive line that isn't
Yeah.
good with decent weapons, but those decent weapons don't have matter if you're not making your quarterback's life any
Yeah.
easier. And I
And
understand
the
maybe Trevor
weapons,
isn't as good as you thought he was, but like we're making his life as difficult as humanly possible every time he trouts on the field.
I also don't like the decisions their like front office has made. Like obviously I think Trevor was like the pick. I'm not saying
Mhm.
that. But they always like you were talking about before, and I think you skew more like traits based drafting
Which
than
is
I
why I like
do.
a Trevor, you know? Yeah.
Sure, but I mean like everyone thought Trevor should have gone number one.
Yeah.
I think the Jags just take that to the extreme.
Yeah.
And
They
every
sure do.
single player they draft every single round is like who has the highest RAS score. I
Hmm.
don't care what they look like on tape at all. Like I'm just drafting the best athlete, which is like okay, like that's a strategy, but then you have to then bring them into great coaching, which they
Yes.
don't have at all. I actually think Brian Thomas is even better than
Dog.
I was a little lower on him. I was very low on him, and I kind of like uh through the draft process like warmed up to him, but like I was still compared to the consensus, like he was probably my wide receiver, like he was everyone's wide receiver four, and he was probably my like six or seven or something like that. Like I was low on him, and I will put my hand up like he has looked great. Like I'm wrong. But the way that offense is built is like you have 6'4" like outside receiver in him, and then you have Gabe Davis and like Christian Kirk like vertical threat. He works a little bit more through the slot, but it's like their whole offense is designed for like this like downfield passing attack right at the exact same time that the league is shutting that completely down. And then they have the worst like
Yep.
run. They ran the ball well this week, I will say, but they've had like the worst run scheme in the NFL. Like, and Peterson's at the forefront of that. And ETN is like very explosive. Um, but like he over the years has had like big chunk plays a lot, but like down to down, like very inconsistent. I'm pretty sure his entire time in the Jags, he's been averaging under 4 yards a carry. It's
Yeah,
like
I
it's
think
just
right now
loss
Tank
of one,
Bigsby
loss
has
of
4 yards
one.
per carry.
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, the
So I think
Jaguars is yeah, and
they
it's
would be
honestly
helped. Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead.
no okay. No, no, you go first because my point's kind of like drawn out.
Okay. I think they would be. They have to just. The start is firing Peterson.
Mhm.
Um, maybe even the offensive coordinator. I don't even know. Like, because people don't seem to like him either. Like, I think you find whoever is at like more fault, like who's in more control of the offense.
It might be a clean house type of time.
Yeah,
It like
and it's
keep
like,
Trevor.
and I would say fire Doug Peterson, and like that was my take from the beginning of the years. Doug Peterson's going to get fired, and now they're 0-4, lost 10 straight, or whatever the heck it is. Like he's got to go. You need to change something. But now that I'm thinking about it, it's like, okay, do you fire him and you promote who? Like, does that fix anything? Like, it doesn't seem like our offensive coordinator and Press Taylor is really going to help the problem. I'm not saying you have to promote him to head coach, but it's like I almost think maybe you just try to limp your way through the season and then blow everything up. And I think the general manager needs to go too. Trent Baalke, like I don't like him either.
Hmm. Their owner, if you ask any of their fans, not a good guy either.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think
it's
they're just
just a
horribly managed from all
yeah.
aspects, and that's why Trevor Lawrence is being hurt by it.
Yeah, it's I feel bad for Trevor because he's one of those guys kind of like Stafford, where even if he has a bad game, he makes one throw and it's just like, oh wow, I cannot believe that. But to your Doug Peterson point, it's Doug Peterson is this offensive guy. He's coached offense his entire time in the league. He I won't say is largely responsible, but was the head coach when Carson Wentz was going crazy, and then gets it over with a backup quarterback, and the offense is still as effective. So for one, to not have done that with Trevor Lawrence, who is by far more talented than either Carson Wentz or Nick Foles, and two, one of the reasons he was so successful in Philly was because he got somebody who was really good to handle the defense, and he has not done that in Jacksonville. They're 30th in DVOA. I think it was something ridiculous. Like 50% of the time, they're running man coverage when their best corner is out. What are we doing? You're playing like rookie corners. Uh,
They
there
got
was
a
a
lot of
third
credit.
round
They
pick.
played like solely man coverage against the Dolphins week 1. And it's like you just
Yes.
like don't do that against them with Waddle and Tyreek. They actually did well in that game. Like they deserve a lot of credit for that. But it's like, I don't know. They're trying to
Yeah.
like zig when everyone else is zagging, but it like isn't well thought out.
They're trying to run this scheme that they don't have the personnel to do. And I
Yeah.
think as a coach, if you can't change your scheme to your personnel, i.e., a guy like Mike McDonald, who, although is a great offensive mind, can't really change his scheme like the rest of the Shanahan tree to fit his personnel, it says something about you as a coach. But yeah, they had Jerry and Jones, rookie corner, who, although I did like him coming out of college,
Is he
he's a
from
rookie corner, man.
BC?
He went to Florida State. Uh,
Broncos.
which is I know it's easy to be like, I like the corner from Florida State, but I did like him. Uh, and but I don't know if you saw my Bills motion video where they fake motioned Khalil Shakir out to the right. Dude puts his head down, books it to the other side of the field to guard this flat route. Khalil Shakir's wide open on a wheel route. Like that's the kind of undisciplined cornerback play we're playing with, and we're choosing to run man with them every play. Like at some point, we got to make these kids' lives easier. I know at some point you want them to run man, but at this point they can't. So I don't know what we're doing. Yeah,
You bring up the
30th in
Stafford
DVOA. It's
thing.
atrocious.
I wonder if this Trevor stuff keeps getting like worse and worse. And then it's like give it a year or something, and then the Rams finally like have all of their picks back, and then they just send like
For Trevor,
mega deal for Trevor Lawrence, and they do the same strategy.
yes,
I wonder if that could happen someday.
my agenda would be saved. Trevor Lawrence with a serious play caller. I
What
would
other
like to see
team do
that.
you think would send a mega deal for Trevor Lawrence? This is like obviously multiple years away if it were to happen.
I was gonna say it depends. The Giants could be a candidate if they don't draft a quarterback next year and just stick it out with Daniel Jones.
I feel like it's got to be
Rams.
a team that's going to need a quarterback in like 2 or
Yeah.
3 years or something.
You know, I wouldn't hate with Dave Canales seeing the Panthers really go defense or offense in this draft. Maybe give Bryce 2 more years.
Because I feel like the
It doesn't
only
look
way
like he's
this
gonna be good, but
happens too, though, is like Lawrence like plays out his contract and it like doesn't
because
go
at that
well.
point that contract is untradeable. You're talking about waiting 2 to 3 years before it's even possible to get rid of him.
Yeah, and then it's like we don't know if Lawrence is that good now, and like we don't have the team to help him out anyway. Like we need to
Yeah.
just restart. Like the Jaguars need to get to the point where they need to like restart for this to ever happen. So it's got to be like a team that's going to need a quarterback in like 4 or 5 years. So my first thought is a team that's going to have a quarterback retire.
Rams, maybe Cowboys. Maybe Dak moves on after his contract's up.
That could
But
make
they just
sense.
re-signed him, so who knows? Another team
Like
like the
Lawrence
Saints, maybe.
just signed a contract
Yeah,
for like 5 or 6 years or something.
yeah, very similar deal to Dak, just longer. Uh, the Saints with Derek Carr, Kirk Cousins. If Michael Penix doesn't work out in Atlanta, maybe you replace him. Although I think they try with 29-year-old Michael Penix. Uh,
Mhm.
and it also depends on how some of these rookie quarterbacks play out, like the Vikings. Let's say JJ McCarthy doesn't end up being a very good player. Do you bring in a guy like Trevor Lawrence, a veteran, to recreate like the Sam Darnold thing? The Seahawks, maybe Geno Smith retires.
Yeah. I don't
There's a
know.
couple of teams out there. I think the Rams would be the best fit because it kind of seems like Matthew Stafford's on his way out. Maybe they get a season where they really suck, and then they trade maybe a top pick for him.
Yeah, that'd be
Uh,
interesting. That'd be
Trevor Lawrence with a serious play caller. I want to see it. That's a good quarterback. I can see it. It's somewhere inside of him. It's just gone.
yeah. He did not play well this week.
No, yeah.
Like,
To
they
to
easily could have won the game,
mhm.
but
uh yeah, to the point where Trevor Lawrence is definitely a great player, and I will admit he has not played well. So it's not like just a team issue. He has also not played well, but I think it's because the team has broken his development.
yeah. I guess um one more thing I want to talk about is what's your take on the Chiefs right now? I feel like we get to a point with this every single year where it's like, oh, they look bad. They're not that
Mhm.
good. And then they figure it out. But
Um,
I feel like what
yeah.
it's going to take to figure it out is just increasingly getting harder and harder.
I tweeted about this yesterday. It says, I don't think the football gods want a three-peat to happen because, and I said this before the season in the Chiefs prediction video or the AFC West prediction video, that only way I see the Chiefs not winning a Super Bowl is injuries. And it's looking like it's cooking them. You lose your best receiver for the season. Isaiah Pacheco is out for the season.
I think he's
Oh,
supposed to come
like,
back come
is he
playoff
for the
time,
playoff? He's out for the
at
regular
least like
season. Is
end of
that
the
what I read?
regular season, maybe. I
Let me
don't know.
check.
That stuff's always weird.
Yeah, I think, yeah, it was something like that. It might have been,
Because he like broke his leg,
yeah.
which is not like an ACL. And I think like, and he did it in what, week two? So it's like that might just be like a 8 to 10 week recovery. I don't know. I'm no doctor.
Yeah, me neither. But with a guy who plays like Pacheco, do you rush him back coming off of an injury like that?
Right. And realistically, they should still pretty easily win the division.
Oh yeah, they will because
So it's like,
yeah.
why rush him back?
Yeah, it says he's expected to miss 6 to 8 weeks, but his return is not guaranteed
Mm.
because he had significant ligament damage as well
Oh.
as a bone fracture. Uh, but even then, with a guy like that, that's because it's saying right here, similar injury to Tony Pollard. Now, granted, Tony Pollard was older, but when Tony Pollard came back, not the same player.
Hmm.
And now you're seeing Tony Pollard now, a year later, is really good.
Hmm. And
Do you
the
trust
Chiefs
Pacheco to come back and
defense,
be Pacheco?
right? And the
I
Chiefs
don't know.
defense is very good,
Hmm.
but I don't think it's to the level it was last year.
No, not even close.
Like
I
that's the
mean,
reason
it's
they
close, but
won is because they were playing. They had the best defense in the league, and then Mahomes was making plays when it counts. And I
yeah.
think Mahomes is always gonna. You're always gonna assume he's gonna make plays when it counts. That should always pretty much be there.
Mhm.
But if you don't combine it with best defense in the league, do they win a Super Bowl?
Yeah.
I don't know.
They were top five in DVOA last year, and this year they're ninth. So it has
But
regressed a
still
little
very
bit with them.
good.
Yeah, it's still a
Like
good
come
defense, but
playoff
is it that
time, like
same?
Spagnolo with a plan is one of the scariest things you're gonna see.
Sure is. In
But
Spags we trust. I've been meaning to order that T-shirt. It is a very, it's a very true statement. But to the point, to your point with that KC team is, and it's kind of the same with the Niners team, and it's kind of a point I've had with quarterbacks is there's going to be a time where you need to drop back. Everybody in the building knows you're going to pass. Can your quarterback and your weapons core do it?
hmm.
And when you're talking about going into a Super Bowl and your best wide receiver is 2024 Juju Smith-Schuster, I don't, or not even just the Super Bowl, you're going against a Buffalo team and their best wide receiver is Juju Smith-Schuster. I think that's a problem.
Yeah, I
And
think our
especially when
only
you don't
hope.
have the run game to supplement it.
Yeah, I think if you're a Chiefs fan, the hope end of season is that Xavier Worthy gets going, and if Hollywood Brown, I'm hearing
Comes
some
about,
weird things about him. If he
yeah.
can come back at the end of the year and be decent,
I think they
all
said
of a
he'd be ready
sudden
for
they might get
playoffs.
this like big vertical boost,
Hmm.
which could go a long way.
Yeah, that would be their path to the Super Bowl is Xavier Worthy needs to catch on and catch on quick. However, he's kind of just a deep threat at this point in his career,
Yeah, at this point right now, he's kind of like deep threat and like gadget
which,
guy.
yeah, could
But
work if Travis Kelsey keeps because he played well against the Chargers Sunday.
yeah, I think
Uh,
that's the other thing is Kelsey's getting worse and older,
mhm,
but come like big time playoff game, like
he's gonna
they
care.
might be just like kind of saving him a little bit because they
Hmm.
know that's like their trump card. But like if they don't have that at 100%, like it was the same thing last year. Like he looked considerably worse, but come playoff time, like he was mossing Kyle Hamilton in the end zone, and I was
Yeah,
breaking things. But um, so I don't know, like, and they're 4-0.
yeah.
It's like,
While winning like one score games,
yeah. I mean, they play
not like
Monday
they're
night
blowing teams out.
the Saints, which I don't think is going to be an easy game. Um, The Saints have had some O-line injuries, which made their O-line not look as dominant. And I think the entire country is going to be from a. Do you sports bet at all?
I used to, but not recently.
Gotcha.
Uh,
I do. I just put like I do like a lot of research into like feeling confident about my picks, and
yeah,
then I only put like $10 down, and I
yeah,
use like every single like uh free play option I possibly can. Like every
yeah,
primetime game, like DraftKings gives me like because of the amount of bets I placed or whatever, I get like $10 of like a free bet. So like I just always like bet for free for $10. And like I don't know. I just like to do it because it's fun. But I just
oh yeah,
never bet more than I'm willing to lose. Um,
yeah.
but like the
Be
entire country
responsible.
is gonna be betting on the Saints, I feel like, against the Chiefs, because everyone knows that they haven't looked as good and like the Saints have been kind of fun this year. Week 1 and week 2 always get inflated on people's like opinions of teams. And like from an objective standpoint, like I could see them having a chance. Part of me feels like if the entire country is gonna be betting on the Saints, I want to be on the Chiefs side. But I don't know. That's just kind of like an interesting
Yeah,
topic to me, and we always get to this point every year, and it's like we're
true.
already at this point, but they're still 4-0, and it's really early, and they have
Yeah.
14 more weeks to figure it out.
As I'm always, I like, I want to caution myself, and I know it's not like I'm not saying anything new here, but I want to caution myself. It's the Chiefs, it's Patrick Mahomes, it's
Yeah.
Andy Reid, Steve Spagnuolo. They're gonna figure it out. But at the same time, there's so many injuries just in week 4 to such important players at positions of need
Rasheed
already.
Rice was looking so good too.
Yes. And honestly, I like that was if you asked me this question last week, I'd be like, yeah, dude, they have Rishi Rice. The offense might be unstoppable. That might be the greatest yak team in the history of the game. And then you lose him, and it's like that offense looks considerably worse. So I'm not going to say they're not going to win a Super Bowl because I don't want to look stupid in February because it's the Chiefs. But if they don't even make it, I'd be like, yeah, yeah, injuries, which is
Yeah.
kind of like
What's so
it's out
weird
of
about
their
it too
hands.
is like through 4 weeks, Patrick Mahomes has legitimately been out of the quarterbacks that have started all 4 weeks, he's legitimately been one of the worst. But I still would give me one quarterback with a minute left to go get a field goal or a touchdown, whatever you need. I'm not picking anyone else. So it's
Yeah.
just like a weird, like, how do you even have any analysis on it?
Mm.
It's the same conversations we used to have with Brady, but it's just now it's Mahomes, and I don't know. But to kind of piggybacking off of that, this can maybe be the last segment. I know we've been going for a while on the Chiefs. If there's going to be an AFC team to knock them off, we saw two of them on Sunday night that have
Say
a
what you're
chance
gonna
to be
say.
the Ravens and the Bills. Obviously, this
Yes.
is a very like big game for me. I'm a Ravens fan, but I'm from Bills country, so it's like really weird where like I'm like 60% Ravens fan, 40%
Mm.
Bills fan. Like I don't know. I go back and forth and my Phil's fandom like grows because I'm far away from home now and like I have the hometown like connection to it and my dad and everything. But then
Mhm.
games like this where they play against each other, I'm watching it like 1,000% rooting for the Ravens. So like
Yeah.
these games remind me that like I'm a true Ravens fan. But what I'm getting at is I have a lot of biases going on in this game. Someone like that's completely objective. Overall thoughts, obviously the Ravens kind of beat up on them, but that doesn't necessarily reflect everything.
I went into that game thinking the Bills would win.
It
Uh,
looked better going into the game.
yeah. Because I thought the Bills could play that brand of football that the Ravens play. With James Cook now, and with how improved their offensive line is, and with even just the threat of Josh Allen, I thought they could play bully football. And I was wrong. Or I don't know if I'm wrong, but they can't play it to the extent that the Ravens do. And here's the thing about the Bills and the Chiefs, without Isaiah Pacheco, they can't play that style of football either. Uh, Now there's questions about can the Ravens and Lamar play the kind of shootout ball that Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes can. And although I think Lamar can, is it's a question of like, do you trust him to do it in that moment? which I think is stupid, but it's also like it is true. He has had playoff struggles, even though it's like 4 games. But I still don't think he's good enough to play that style of ball. But if the Ravens can get, I'm not that he's not good enough. He's just not good like them to play that style of ball. But if the Ravens get to the playoffs and they play those teams, if they can do it like they did against the Bills, get out early, run the football, play your style of game, they're gonna be hard to beat, man. With Derrick Henry in that backfield, I don't think there's a team in the AFC that can play that style of football to the effectiveness that they can, and they're at a point too where the game gets close. You have Lamar Jackson. If you need him to drop back and make a throw, he's going to be able to do it. So, my pick right now would be the Ravens. I know it's crazy to say based off one game, but they just looked so dominant. Like they were unstoppable against the Bills defense. I thought was pretty good against the run, and they got Lamar.
Yeah. My kind of take on it, trying to be as objective as I can, but maybe this will
Mhm.
sound kind of homery. I guess I'll start with the Bills. My worry with the Bills going into this year, like they're taking the route of kind of what the Chiefs did last year, where it's, or kind of the last 2 years where they lost Tyreek Hill, and then it's like we're gonna kind of win through like um death
Offense
by a
by
thousand
committee.
paper cuts.
Yeah,
We're gonna kind of like make the receiving core rather than funnel through one person, kind of more spread out. Um, but my worry for the Bills from an overarching standpoint was they're going to take the Chiefs model, but it's just going to be slightly worse. And they're trying to beat the Chiefs, and then they're copying their model, but at 90%.
yeah.
So it's like,
Dollar store version. It's not that bad, but
so if you're going to be trying to beat this, like, I know like it hasn't worked in the past. I mean, you've been very close. So it's like, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing, trying to expecting a different result. So it was like, kind of felt like if you're going for it to beat them this year, you're kind of copying their homework, but they're the ones making like the decision. Like you're like, I don't know. I just didn't feel like that was the way to beat them was to do like at their own game. Um,
yeah. But to be fair to the Bills, the other way wasn't working either. So
right.
some had to
But it's like
switch.
you were so close. Like, was it just variance? I don't know. So then part of me was
Yeah,
like, okay, is this maybe just like a reset year and you're doing this for now? You're gonna try this out, see how it comes of it. I think it's helping Josh Allen. Um, and you kind of like reload a little bit, but you're still competitive. You reload. And
yeah.
the further thing from that was part of me looking at the Bills roster objectively. It was like you go position by position, other than Josh Allen, and it's like, oh yeah, they're good. They're not great. Josh Allen's great. Their O line is like good, not great. Their
Mhm.
secondary is good. They've got some players. It's not great. Their D
Yeah.
line is good. Is there anyone on the D line that I'd say is great? No.
Respect Ed Oliver.
And Oliver's good.
Yeah.
Like I'd give him an 85 in Madden. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? Like he's not like a game wrecking
He's
no
not
matter who
Dexter
he's
Lawrence,
playing.
you know.
He's not
Yeah.
Chris Jones.
Yeah. Exactly. There's a
Um,
good. There it is.
that are safeties are like I like some players and that the safeties on paper are not very good, but like regardless, it's like
Come back from the dead, man.
across the board, like even the receivers, it's like I like some players. I really like Khalil Shakir. Like it's the tight ends are pretty good. They're good, not great. Like what I'm getting at is even Sean McDermott, like I feel he's a very good coach. Do I think he's a great coach?
Hmm.
Like if Andy Reid is great, if Sean McVay is great, if Kyle Shanahan is great, Sean McDermott's not in that category. And through 3 weeks, I think I got a little bit tricked off of my original priors because they looked so good. And it was like, oh, maybe like the way the NFL is going with the rise of too high and like you needing to be really good at stopping the run from too high and having a run game and having like that more intermediate focused offense, which is exactly what the Bills did with the trend of the league. They perfectly timed it up where like this is what works right now.
Hmm.
And they dominated for 3 weeks. And it was like, oh, like maybe they like saw this trend coming and like this is why they decided to pivot to it now. And I was like, maybe they're really smart. But now, and of course, hindsight's 2020, they lose a tough game to a pretty good team. And it's like, did they really play anyone? great. Who are the elite players they went up against between the Cardinals, the Dolphins, and the Jaguars?
There's maybe like three offensively.
And they're not like the elite of the elite either. The Cardinals, Kyler,
I'm
would
putting
I say
Kyler
he's
in there.
elite of the elite? No.
Yeah, no, he's not the
Um,
best of the best.
like he's like the one person you can even say that about. Like maybe Buda Baker, even then, it's like
Yeah,
good player, great player. But
but didn't play too well against them either. But
yeah. And then it's
yeah,
Dolphins, Tyreek Hill. But like that game got like a little weird because Tua got hurt and they were playing phenomenal before that. I think they deserve a lot of credit for the quarter or whatever, 2 quarters that they played really well against the Dolphins. But it was like, okay. And then it was the Jaguars, which I don't think there's one player on the team that I'd say like maybe Josh Allen on the Jaguars, but he's not like elite of the elite. He's not Myles Garrett, he's not TJ Watt, he's not um Max Crosby. And then they play the Ravens. And it's like, okay, you're going against Lamar, who could be argued as elite of the elite. You're going against Derrick Henry, who could be argued as elite of the elite. You're going against Roquan Smith. Roquan Smith could be argued elite of the elite. Kyle Hamilton could be argued elite of the elite. And all of a sudden, it looks a lot different. You know what I mean?
yeah, it's possible in like both directions. One, we overreacted to, their 3-0 start against like decent teams, but then we're also like, despite them getting their ass kicked on prime time against a great team, like it's possible they just had a bad game.
Right. And they
Uh,
they were honestly looking like they were gonna get back in until that trick play.
mhm,
And I was full tilt, like, oh, here we go. Ravens look like they're the best team in the NFL. And then
yeah,
the second half comes around and they just completely implode. We've seen this story. And I was like, oh, here we go again. And then that play happened and it was all shut down.
yeah.
But
I
it was
will say that the NFL does have a way of humbling teams and people,
hmm
and I feel like this week with that Ravens game and how much they were dominated on the run, could be like a humbling situation for the Bills. Like you all are a good team, but don't get it twisted.
yeah, that was my
There are
take on
teams
them
that
going into
have
the
that
year.
philosophy better
It's
than you.
like if you have Josh Allen and you have a semi-decent roster and Sean McDermott's a good coach, like there's no way you will be bad. There's no scenario where Josh Allen plays the whole year and you are bad. When it comes to playing the tops of the NFL, I just don't know if they have the horses. And that's
Yeah,
what this kind of looked like. But to be fair, like you missed your run fit assignments on the first play of the game, and Derrick Henry scores a 90-yard touchdown, and you're just like starting immediately from that situation. The Ravens defense did look really good, but it's like, I don't know. And you call a badly timed trick play that doesn't work at all, and you have a turnover. Like there's a lot of in football, like 2 or 3 plays can literally just decide a game.
yeah,
And so you never want to attribute too much to a one game thing. But the first 4 weeks of the Bills season is kind of like almost exactly my preseason take on them.
yeah,
It's that they're going to be a good team. There's no way they can be bad, and they're going to look good against these teams that are like slightly above average to below average. And then against the great teams, I don't know if they have the horses. And that's kind of what that
yeah.
looked like.
They kind of
What
remind me of the AFC's Cowboys, where they just have all this talent and there's no way they can be bad. But I'm just not quite sure they're up there with the contenders of
Mhm.
the conference. I'm never actually in my life going to bet against Josh Allen. I think as long as they have Josh Allen,
Sure.
they have a chance a little more than the Cowboys do. Because although I'm Dak's biggest fan, there are games where it just seems like he disappears. With Josh Allen, it doesn't ever really seem like that. And Josh Allen is so good, so good. I think he wins MVP this year. They are. It doesn't matter who they're playing with.
They're going to be good. I still think they're going to win 10,
Yeah.
11, 12
Oh
games.
yeah.
It's
But
just
when
like,
you're talking about going up against Patrick Mahomes and the
yeah.
Chiefs, Lamar Jackson and the Ravens, even a team like the Jets, which they didn't look good this past week, but I still think that's a really good team. Uh, do they compete against those kind of teams? I think they split with the Jets, and I think they win the division. But there's going to be games where they play a really good team and they look really really bad, and they're gonna stomp on those good teams. I think you do have a point. I don't think that means they're like honestly, I still think they make the AFC Championship.
Yeah, no, I still think they're a top three team in the AFC.
Yeah, I agree. But
It's like I still think they're good. It's just like I don't know if they have the horses for that one last step.
yeah,
And I don't know though, because thinking about it now, like I don't know if there's like as many absolute juggernauts in the NFL as we think.
mm,
So it's like maybe just Josh Allen's gonna give you a chance.
yeah.
But if
And
I
to be fair, the Ravens looked very human in the first 2 weeks.
yeah,
The Chiefs have looked very human in the first 4 weeks of the season. So it's not like these other teams are just running around
and
blowing
the
everybody out.
Jets, I was very high on them, and I still think they're a decent team and they can figure some things out. I think they're just further away than I thought. Um,
Yeah,
so
I think
that
it's also
kind of
their
takes away an
offensive
AFC
philosophy.
contender. The Bengals don't look very good at all. That kind of takes away from a threat. I think the Texans are definitely in that conversation of top three team in the AFC.
Yeah, but even then, they against the Jags didn't look too hot. There's been games where they haven't looked too
Yeah,
hot.
I feel like that's just kind of like the natural like NFL like swing. They had like
Divisional
a
game.
muffed punt divisional game,
Yeah,
and it was just like even at the end of the game, and it's like okay, we need CJ Stroud to go score a touchdown. Like it's gonna happen. He's gonna go throw a touchdown to Nico Collins. Like they're
yeah,
starting to get into that
they
where it's
do.
like
Yeah,
they go through the natural ebbs and flows of the NFL season and NFL games that are inevitably gonna happen. But when it comes down to it, like the same way we feel about Mahomes, it's like Stroud's gonna just he's gonna find a way.
yeah, kind of like Mahomes. Mahomes is 13th in EPA. CJ Stroud is 16th in EPA per play. But it's like I
2
am
minutes
not
left
betting against
and
CJ
down
Stroud.
four. I'm not picking
Mhm.
anyone else.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think like Brett Coleman tweeted about it. And he's like, "This is the first time I've ever
right.
watched the Texans, and they've been in a huge spot, and I'm not even worried." And it's like that's even if you haven't played well, that's a great spot to be as a team.
Yeah, I think the
Uh,
Texans have an argument to be. They're in the
I will
argument
say
for
with the
top five
Texans,
AFC, in my
that
opinion.
secondary, nah,
True, but sometimes it's like when you know you have a good coach, it's like, and there's a unit, as long as you have like some bodies that you can think can maybe figure it out, like you can
yeah,
just like give them time throughout a year. I was gonna talk about this with the Ravens, if I can kind of get my like splooge fest on the Ravens out quick. The offensive line has been the biggest point of contention. That's like their biggest problem, the biggest missing thing. And I don't think it's from a lack of bodies.
mhm,
It's just they have to figure out who's the best five and they
yeah,
need them to gel together a little bit. Um, because I don't think they're ever going to be like a dominant offensive line. Um, just because of like the level of talent, but they're not like the Rams where it's
ah,
like batted up,
yeah.
like injured, and you're throwing out XFL players either. And
It's
Ronnie
not like the
Stanley
Seahawks.
has been a very good player in his career and spent like the last 2 years very beat up. Like yeah, exactly. It's not like the Seahawks where just their interior will not at any point be good this year
Uh,
because they just don't have the players for it at all.
yeah,
The Ravens, if you go left to right, left tackle, Ronnie Stanley, elite player in his career, been banged up the last 2 years, but has played very well this year. Left guard, Andrew Voorhees, first year player, he's been very solid. Tyler Linderbaum, one of the best centers in the NFL. It's the right side. And they have Daniel Falele, who's like 6'9", 400 pounds, and everyone like shits on him every single week because he gets beat really bad. But I think he's slowly starting to figure it out a little bit. And then they have a five-tool Patrick McCarry who can play every single position on the in the NFL or on the offensive line at like a replacement level, which is very valuable because no matter who gets hurt, no matter what you got to shuffle around, you can throw him in. And
yeah,
he's been solid. And then Roger Rosengarten is the rookie right tackle who lacks a little bit of play strength. He's a rookie, but he's getting better every single week and actually played well against the Bills and had shown flashes against Max Crosby. And so they're really starting to figure it out, is what I'm getting at. And they have multiple bodies to try out and figure it out. So I think it's something throughout a whole season. By the end of it, you can feel like it's not like a non-starting, like you're just cooked, like you're not gonna be able to do anything. And then the defense is figuring out with Zach Orr as the new defensive coordinator. They're starting to figure some things out. I really like that they have an extra corner that has man coverage athletic ability in Nate Wiggins.
Wiggins.
I think the Ravens, like they're like five secondary players are good, but they are all injury prone. So having another body in there that can man up against someone, I think is really important. And then the big thing on offense is Lamar finally has another star on the team that can take pressure off of him. And even like back to like earlier Lamar days, it's like how teams were creative in stopping him is they would stack the box, but they would be like all like lighter safeties and athletic linebackers where you could stack the box and have the bodies to have these run fits where every gap was plugged up. But then Lamar's only throwing the ball over the middle of the field, and now you have these good coverage players in there where everything shuts down. But now if you try to put three safeties in the box and Derrick Henry is 6'3", 250 pounds, he's gonna have 6 yards of pop every single time because he's just gonna fall
Hmm.
forward and his body is 9 yards long. And you can't do that anymore. And like, I'm not saying Derrick Henry is gonna have a game like he did the last 2 weeks every single week because a lot of times the run game is very scheme dependent. But now that the fact that there's that threat and like Lamar has been like the extremely efficient the last 2 weeks, it's been kind of reminiscent of when he won MVP the first time, where it's like he's gonna run for 60 yards and a touchdown, and then he's gonna go 13 for 15, 200 yards and three touchdowns. And at the end of the day, he's gonna have 270 total yards, but four touchdowns with a 95% completion percentage, and they win 42-10.
Yeah.
So it's kind of building that, and then like even the tight ends, like like Mark Andrews is doing nothing, and like Zay Flowers has not been as involved, and it's like that could be a level that gets figured out even more as well. And they're
Yeah.
already playing at his level. So
Oh,
my
yeah.
kind of state of the Ravens is they're starting to figure out their things right now, and it's kind of coming together, and I'm very optimistic. And the last thing, when they won the Super Bowl in 2013 season, the year before, they lost an AFC championship in a heartbreaker to the Patriots because Billy Cundiff shanked a 30-yard field goal. This past year, they lost in a heartbreaker to the Chiefs, where they were really kind of expected to win, sort of, and they lost a heartbreaker, kind of came out at the end of the game, and it took them having that kind of like fire for a whole next season. I don't know. And the other thing is Justin Tucker has to stop being a bad kicker because every kicker in the NFL is good except for the best kicker of all time, who is now just Brandon Aubrey anyway. But except Brandon Aubrey missed that field goal to make the
Yeah.
Cowboys not cover and cost me $10.
Of course, Vegas made the call with that one.
Yeah,
That's
it's
my
the
excuse.
only field goal he's ever missed, and
Yeah.
that pissed me
To
off.
your point with the
But
Ravens, when you lose as much as they did in the offseason, I'm about to sneeze here. When you lose as much as they did in the offseason, there's bound to be some bumps in the road in the beginning of the year, but when you still have as much talent as they do and you're still as well coached, you're gonna be fine.
they have like less overall talent, but the Derrick Henry thing, if they can figure out their
Yeah.
line a little bit more, which it seems like they are, it's like they have less talent across the board, but they added a game-changing element.
Yes. And with the Derrick Henry, you don't have to have the best offensive line in the league, man. It's just gotta be serviceable. You saw it in
And the other
Tennessee.
thing is they don't have the best offensive line in the league, but they have great tight ends and a great fullback that legitimately
And a
makes a
great running
number.
scheme.
Like
Hmm.
Pat Ricard being able to just like blow up and displace a defensive tackle is an advantage that does not get talked about enough. You made a great video about Derrick Henry's long run and the kind of like wham concept where Pat Ricard, who's a tight end fullback, and you're normally thinking like a 250-pound fullback, like big dude, but like what's he gonna do against a 310-pound defensive lineman? Pat Ricard's a full 300 pounds and will like obliterate.
Bulldoze.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
And
exactly what he done a lot
the other thing with the Derrick Henry thing,
I love
that run
Wham.
is exactly what I'm talking about with like maybe overall less talent, but you have a game-changing thing. I saw this tweet from this Ravens account, and it's like this run was blocked perfectly, and Derrick Henry is fast enough and like crazy enough to take it all the way to the house. Last year, if you hand that ball off to Gus Edwards, perfectly blocked, he gets 22 yards and gets tackled, and you're like, oh, like, yeah, like that was a great play. If it's
Hmm.
fully healthy J.K. Dobbins, he might get 45 yards. Like he'll get a big burst and he'll get, like barely get tripped up by safety and like go out of bounds, huge play. Derrick
Hmm.
Henry, it's 87 yards to the house. That's and we're talking about two or three plays make the difference in football games a lot of times. That's game changing.
Yeah, in a league where it kind of seems like most people are down the idea that running backs don't matter, that's the difference between a good running back and an elite one.
Mhm.
Although you can still have a productive offense with a Rico Dowdle, there's a difference between Rico Dowdle and Bijan Robinson. And that's it. It's like the ability to create to make plays even more explosive than they are. Like, yes, a certain amount of it is having the great run blocking offensive line, but there was a similar play with the J.K. Dobbins with the Chargers where it was a perfectly blocked play, but he got hawked down by a safety at like the 20-yard line. It's from a similar, it would have been like a 92-yard touchdown.
Mhm.
To that point, I think Derrick Henry probably would have taken that one to the crib. That's why you go and you get a running back of Derrick Henry's caliber, and you're seeing it with the Ravens now that they've kind of figured it out, kind of.
They're figuring it out, I would say. The last 2 weeks have looked great.
Yeah, they're third in EPA per play on offense, which is very good.
Yeah.
And I think in rush success rate, I can check it right now, actually. They're fourth. So
What stat are you using for that? Or what?
that's it's rbsdm.com.
Gotcha. Good to know.
And then the DVOA one is ftnfantasy.com. That one's for DVOA. Those are like my two, like those are team statistics to me. Like I hate when people put up quarterback EPA because it's always like Brock Purdy, Jared Goff at the top. It's like, yeah, it's a team stat. It's not. A quarterback can only do so much unless Dak Prescott is at the top of it and it fits my narrative. But yeah, the top five quarterbacks by DPA: Jaden Daniels, Josh Allen, Sam Darnold, Derek Carr, Brock Purdy. Four of those are scheme merchants right now. It's a team stat.
Yeah. I gotta. We can kind of like uh wrap it up here, but I will say one thing on the Jaden Daniels thing. I made a video. I don't. I think I saw my drafts right now. It's to kind of like temper expectations a little bit because he's looked so great and he deserves a lot of credit. But he just went against the two worst pass rushers in the NFL. I rewatched the Cardinals game and they routinely just sent three and gave up on having any type of pressure on him, and he just dotted them up, which is a testament to him because not every rookie can just make the correct decision over and over and over again and have a 90% completion percentage, and then if it's not there, run for 4 yards, which is why this offense has been so good. I think he's going to graduate to the next level of defense where teams are going to now like realize that they can't play that game against him. They can't just confuse him and they're going to start pressuring him. And I think that's where he kind of struggled a little bit in college. And I don't think the Commanders' offensive line
Yeah.
is good enough to not have that. And they play the Browns next week with Myles Garrett, and I think it's going to look a little bit different. If he looks good against that under pressure, then all bets are off for me. And I'm like, this guy could be have a Stroud level rookie season. Maybe
Yeah.
not Stroud level, but like amazing rookie season. But he's got to pass that next step. And I think, and if I had to put money on it, I'd say he's not going to look as good, and he's definitely not going to just end the year with a 90% completion percentage. I'll tell you
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. It's very I could make an entire like I could talk for 2 hours about Jaden Daniels
Yeah.
and that offense right now. But it's very interesting that you kind of see the way the Vikings are doing it with young quarterbacks. They did it to Brock Purdy. They did it to CJ Stroud, where why are teams not just blitzing the shit out of young quarterbacks? Man, that's like the most difficult thing. Like against veteran, it's stupid. Like if you're blitzing a guy like Patrick Mahomes or Dak Prescott over and over again, you're gonna get diced. He's gonna make the right decision every time. But against dude who's 21 or 23 in Jane Daniels' case, has played 4 games in the league. Dude, blitz him. Like, make him make the right decision under pressure. Like, make him make the right decision quickly. If you're giving him a 3-man rush, having him sit back in the pocket, yeah, he's gonna make the right decision every time with how like catered that offense is to him. But to Daniel, when he has needed to throw the ball down the field like he did against the Bengals, granted, bad defense. Uh, that deep ball looks
Very,
good.
yeah. But I feel like next week we'll have a lot to talk about with that because I think this next game is going to be a big test.
Yeah,
Because the
I
Browns have
agree.
not looked good, obviously, and that's mostly kind of the offensive struggles. But I think that
Because their
defense,
defense still has been it's been fine.
yeah, and I think the
But yeah,
defense
they're
has
gonna blitz
probably
him.
looked worse because the offenses look so bad. But
Yeah,
yeah, I think we're gonna get a lot more information to have legitimate like stances on it after next week.
yeah.
That's all I'm saying.
Let me
But
find this here. The Browns are third in blitz rate this season. So yeah,
oh,
they're gonna
we're
send the
gonna
crib
we're
at
gonna
him,
get
and
an
he's got to
answer.
make some decisions.
We're
Hmm.
gonna get an answer. I'm not gonna definitively say he's gonna be horrible this week or something like that, but we're
Yeah,
gonna get some answers. We're gonna get a lot more information.
yeah, definitely. And you saw the Browns got torched by Dak because that's not the type of player you blitz. But
Right.
a
Exactly.
Jaden Daniels, a Daniel Jones, that's the type of player you blitz. Mhm.
Right.
It's
All
not
right.
to say that he's bad, but you know,
Right. No, I agree. He deserves a lot of credit for what he's
yes,
done, but I
absolutely.
think we're gonna see some where it's gonna look different moving forward. But that was a great episode. We talked for a while.
Sure did.
Yeah,
Like an hour and 20, was that what it is?
yeah. Always love talking ball. But I'd love to keep
Absolutely.
doing this on a weekly basis. And I think we can kind of just I like the way we do it where we don't really have a we're gonna review every game and we gotta try and get through every single one, or like last week was kind of projecting forward. And I think that'll be cool to do a little bit too. And I even like the beginning where we kind of just talk about our like content stuff.
Yeah,
I like the way this is forming out.
I do as well. I do enjoy that. I look forward to this. I like it at the beginning of the week too, because my backhand of the week are a little more a little packed with high school football, but like a
Sure.
Tuesday morning following Monday Night Football, I do like this.
Definitely. All right, man. All right, and everybody, please like, comment, subscribe, and we'll see you next week. Have a good one. Peace.